Tragic incident there. Now, tomorrow, the world will mark the International Day in support of victims of torture. The day is marked annually to speak out against the crime of torture and to honor and support victims and survivors of the vice. The event was first marked on the 26th of June in 1998 after a decision in Denmark by the UN General Assembly. The day honors the Universal Declaration of Human Rights Against Torture. In Kenya, Articles 25 and 29 of the Constitution provide for the freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment or punishment of persons. Kenyans mark the day amid past reports by Amnesty International indicating that even though the vice has reduced, Kenya police and prison officers have often been accused of torture in the form of prolonged isolation, denial of medical care and brutal beatings to extract information from suspects. And to talk a little bit more about this tonight, I'm joined by Jedida Waruhu, and she's a commissioner of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Yes.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
So where are we on this issue as Kenya, even as we mark this day tomorrow?
Thank you very much for inviting me. As Kenya, we have, as you said, we have ratified the Convention Against Torture, which is a good step, but we have not ratified the optional protocol that gives full effect to the convention.
Okay.
Kenya, we do not have a legislation that takes the constitutional provisions forward in terms of properly defining the offense of torture and cruel and inhuman treatment, and also setting very good benchmarks in terms of punishment for people who perpetrate torture.
Right.
And two, so therefore there is need for us to legislate and bring into effect the Prevention of Torture Bill, which has
2011?
been, yes, which has been pending for a while, and two, the Coroner's Bill, which provides a very important service of investigating any deaths, be they in custody or deaths that are suspicious or deaths that are questionable.
So what will passing those two bills change? What will the tangible effect of that be?
The tangible effect is that we'll bring into life Article 25 and 29 of the Constitution. We are going to have a standard legal system in terms of the offense of torture. We are going to be able to hold both public officers who torture and private officers properly to book. And this will help the Office of the Public Prosecutor and the investigative agency, which in this case would be the coroner, in situations of death, to be able to properly investigate, to keep proper records, and also to support the victims of torture and their families effectively. Right now, our statistics in terms of cases of torture or cruel and inhuman treatment, we don't have a good statistical information on that. Mm-hmm. Also, we don't have full completion or closure to a number of deaths that are caused in custody.
Right. Okay. So the TJRC
yes.
report did identify about over 12,000 victims
yes.
of torture. And the theme this year is the right to rehabilitation. Mm. Is this something that we're getting right as Kenya, or is there a long way to go?
I think we've begun the first step, and we started it this year when in March His Excellency the President acknowledged that our history has been has had pain and suffering.
In the State of the Nation address?
Yes, State of the Nation address. He also acknowledged that there were torture chambers in this country, like the Nyayo torture chambers. We know people were also tortured in Nyati House and in other places. And he also acknowledged the situations of that happened in the post-election violence, the Wagala massacre, that we need to deal with. And these are some of the things that the TJRC report went through, and people came forward and gave evidence and said this is what happened to them. And importantly, there was a public apology for the first time in this country, apologizing for the wrongs previous governments and this government has done to the people of Kenya.
Why was that apology so important?
It is important because, first of all, you acknowledge that there is a wrong that was committed or continues to be committed.
Right.
And as a state who has international obligations, we must move forward and rectify the wrongs by restoring the victims of torture, in terms of helping them with their reparations, helping them to rehabilitate them, helping them to bring closure in terms of what happened, and more importantly, bringing accountability to the perpetrators of torture. I think that was very important. And the second thing that the president did was announce that there's a 10 billion fund that will be used to rehabilitate these victims. So those cases and others that were not captured by the TJRC are important. And that's why this year we are celebrating the day, but also very conscious that victims of torture have not moved forward in terms of their compensation,
right,
in terms of their rehabilitation, both physical and psychological, and also in terms of many pending cases that need to be brought to book.
So those are the things that we need to work on now. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us to shed some light on that. Jedida Waruhio, thank you very much. Okay. All right.